I've spoken of 1,000 points of light, of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nation doing good. We will work hand in hand, encouraging, sometimes leading, sometimes being led.
Welcome back to Set Streets and Eats, guys. I'm Chris Bauer. I am in College Station, Texas today on the campus of the Texas A&M University. Behind me is the Presidential Library Museum of George Herbert Walker Bush. He was our 41st president of the United States. He was also one of only two combos, father-son combos, to ever become president. The first being John Quincy Adams and his son John Adams, way back in the early 1800s. So George H.W. Bush only served one term as U.S. president. He actually had insanely high job approval ratings, but he was going up against Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton did beat him in the 1992 election. It definitely crushed him, but he still had a very active post-presidency, which I'm sure his museum will illuminate all the different things he did after leaving office. So I'm going to get in there and learn a little bit more about our 41st president, and I hope you'll join me. Let's travel.
And I'm the one who will not raise taxes. My opponent now says he'll raise them as a last resort or a third resort. But when a politician talks like that, you know that's one resort he'll be checking into. My opponent won't rule out raising taxes, but I will, and the Congress will push me to raise taxes, and I'll say no. And they'll push, and I'll say no. And they'll push again, and I'll say to them, read my lips. No.
It's a pretty cool rotunda. It's a glass rotunda. But this is a little lobby. And now we head on in. Like many of the libraries, they have the official presidential limo. There's Barbara's and the president's portraits, with the presidential seal between them. Early family. So George Bush Sr.'s father was a congressman from Connecticut. So the Bush family has a long tradition in American politics. George Herbert Walker Bush joined the Navy for World War II. He was one of the youngest pilots in the Navy. He was shot down. He got some, I forget the name of the medal that they gave him, but he served there. He went to Yale, and then after that he got into the oil business and moved to Texas, which is, from that point on, the Bush family became synonymous with Texas. They raised their family in Midland, Texas, the heart of the oil business in America. And this starts talking about his military service during World War II. That's pretty awesome. I actually have a plane like that he would have flown. Wow, look at that. That's pretty cool. Love these old radios. My dad used to love these radios too. We used to have one or two of these growing up in our dining room. You turn it on and listen to the radio at night. Modern radio, obviously. These are some of the cameras and film they would put in these aircraft to take pictures when they were surveilling. We have satellites that do it now, but back then, they didn't have satellites. They had to fly over them. George Bush, like many Americans in World War II, joined up right after Pearl Harbor was attacked by the Japanese, launching the official start of the American involvement in World War II. Man. So, you know, they look small during dogfights, but this is a pretty good-sized plane. I know it's not quite a fighter, but it looks like it's got a lot of the same shape.
Bush himself landed in the sea, pulled himself onto the lake.
Check those old aircraft carriers out. Wow.
I knew the fleet was going south, so I knew if I wasn't rescued, I would be captured.
Finally, he was picked up by the Finback, a patrolling American submarine. And probably the whole event was recorded by the sub's photographic officer.
Then he came home after the war and married his love of his life, Barbara. They were married to the day she died. I believe George Bush died just before she did. I could be wrong on that. I'll find out in this museum. And then the Yale years. This is pretty cool. This is the time that he met Babe Ruth. That's George Bush, future president, meeting the great Yankee slugger. And then they moved to Midland, Texas. Started a family. Or raised their family. They'd already started the family. I'm assuming this must be one of their cars or a replica of something. Headed to Odessa. Look at that. So this is, he bought a brand new Studebaker. Check that out. Only paid $16.75. Nice. Brand new car, no big deal, under $2,000, you know, because it was cheap back then. Of course, that was a lot of money back then.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
During the 1970s, he held several positions throughout Washington and different administrations. He was, I believe, the head of the UN or the chairman of the UN for a while, also the head of the CIA, a U.S. envoy to China, couple different things. He was definitely very involved, a very prominent figure in U.S. politics. Yeah, the Munich Olympics. That was a very big event. 1972. Steven Spielberg did a film called Munich that gets into how Israel took care of that problem. It's a really great film. So right here, you can sit and have a conversation with the president, Mr. Bush. I do notice he's slightly taller than me, and I'm a pretty tall dude. So I think no matter what, no matter who they have sitting here, they want it to be a little bit lower. That makes sense. How are you, sir? He gets quite the view sitting here of the tiny rotunda. of the Capitol building, discussing his time as a U.S. congressman. He had a very long career in Washington. He wanted it to be a bit longer, but unfortunately it was only one term. This is discussing his time as U.S. envoy to China. Nixon really, started this. He opened up China and Nixon appointed him. I'm not exactly sure if envoy and ambassador are the exact same thing. I know that after this period, once it was all established, Nixon opened up China, then we had envoys, and then maybe ambassadors are the same thing, I'm not sure, but ambassadors came later. The very long time, there's been many, or maybe several, but a very long time U.S. ambassadors, I forget their first names. It's a married couple, they've been U.S. ambassadors to China for decades. But their last name is Platt because their son, Oliver Platt, is a very famous actor. And then he was made head of the CIA, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm going to do the right hand on scanner. This is how they get you. Oh, there it is. There's my hand. They got my prints. Identity confirmed, access granted. You don't even know who I am, or maybe do they? Searching for satellite. Oh wait, I found it. It's right there. Oh, I see. I'm gonna guess I'm about to get a top-down view of my head from this satellite that's 5 feet above me. This is cool. So this would be how they track somebody. Yep, there I am. It's heat sensor. Hello. That's pretty cool. Live feed from thermal X-ray sensor. You CIA guys, you know all the tricks. I like that they keep things in drawers here that you have to open to look at. Ooh, something got stolen there. Wow. Fitting tribute. One of the acts, Authorization Act 1999, is missing. That's interesting. Maybe they needed it for something, or somebody got a souvenir. So then we move in to the campaign of 1980. Now at this point, Bush had done his time. He had been in government for a couple of decades. He'd worked every kind of job. He was ready to run for president. He went up against Reagan in the primaries. He won the Iowa, and then Reagan pulled ahead. Now you got to remember, this was Reagan's third time running by 1980 for president. He had lost 2 previous times for president, and he was due a little bit more than George just because he had put the presidential run time in. So voters knew him, obviously, from being an actor and whatnot, and his many years of government service as governor of California. So he ended up winning the nomination in 1980. He named George Herbert Walker Bush his vice president. So that is how Bush became Reagan's vice president. And then when Reagan spent his 8th term, it was Bush's turn. Bush won. He is only the second vice president to win presidential election while in office. The first being Martin Van Buren, who was, by the way, our 8th president of the United States. And I only know that because of the Seinfeld episode, The Van Buren Boys. Who says pop culture rots your brain? Cool campaign buttons. You know me, I love me some campaign buttons. They had 2 campaigns, 1980, 1984. Of course, 1981, there was an attempted assassination of the president. He was shot by John Hinckley Jr. right in Washington, D.C., outside of a hotel. George Bush was at the time on a plane I think, over the ocean, which means he was not technically in power, even though he just wasn't in Washington, which would mean the Speaker of the House of Representatives would be third in line. However, I believe it was his Secretary of State held a press conference because he was the highest ranking cabinet official at the White House at the time, and he said that he was in charge. He kind of misunderstood how the Constitution works. So that was a little slip up, but it got worked out because Reagan did not die. He was hit, but the surgery was successful in removing the bullet, and that was that. I didn't know Bush could play the guitar. That's funny. So this is his guitar. It's called the Prez. That's funny. He played it at the inaugural ball in 1989, January 20th, 1989. Wow. That's funny. This was, of course, Barbara's dress from the inaugural ball. And his boots. Boy, presidents in Texas sure love those boots. Dan Quayle was George Bush's vice president. Oh, this is cool. Look at that. Oh, straw vote. So you put this in a little store, and clearly whoever had the least amount of straws would be the well, I guess they would be the loser, because that means somebody else took either the Democratic straws or Republican straws. I feel like in today's environment, this would just get set on fire. Cigar, that's cool. Bush 88 watch. I guess that's a puppet shirt. Clearly it's not big enough for a human. And this is the facade of the White House. We'll come around here and get a better look at it. I like all these miniature facades they have in here. It's pretty cool. So you got like a whole mini White House you can just walk into. You can practice your press briefings at the podium if you wish. It's pretty cool. And this is one of the state dinner plate settings with a tux and dress worn by George and Barbara Bush. It's quite beautiful. Oh, I guess you do have to go in right there. Is this closed down, or can we look around? Oh, okay, thank you. Once again, the Bronco Buster, like it has been in many presidential Oval Offices. Replica desk. Kept a ball glove right there in the side drawer. That's cool. Yeah, those ones don't. And of course, like so many of them, he also had a George Washington portrait above the fireplace. An old globe. Lots of pictures of family. Pretty neat. Now this you don't see a lot of. And that's the interior recreations at Camp David. That's pretty cool. So this was Bush's Camp David office. Very interesting. You don't see a lot of the insides of Camp David, but that's the presidential retreat. I've told the story before, but it used to be called Shangri-La all the way up through the FDR days. And then Dwight Eisenhower, General Dwight Eisenhower, became president, and he hated calling that Shangri-La, so he named it after his son, David Eisenhower, and from that point on it was called Camp David. Another piece of the Berlin Wall, which is appropriate. This was the era that it was taken down just before Bush's presidency by Reagan and Gorbachev, the Russian premier. I'm almost positive, but I think pretty much every presidential museum has had a piece of it that I visited, except for LBJ's and George W's. And I'm not 100% sure why, or if I just didn't see it. I've seen them at all the rest of them, but I'm not sure why they didn't have one. I can ask my cousin Laura about the LBJ one. She works there, of course, as you saw in my tour of the LBJ library. It's crazy. It's such a piece of history. Like, people, this could have been a bullet hole. People could have, for decades tried to climb this and scale this at night, trying to get to freedom out of West Berlin, or East Berlin, trying to get to West Berlin. They would be shot and imprisoned, and now, you can just sit here and touch it. It's such an amazing piece of history. Crisis management. So this is going to be getting into the Gulf War era. The Situation Room. Nice. So in February, well, maybe even a little bit before February of 1991, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. Kuwait was a longtime ally in the Middle East of the United States, forcing a response from the United States. And that happened under George Bush's watch. This is kind of cool. So there's a briefing on this monitor over here behind me in a minute, but you can sit at these chairs and be at the Situation Room, as you do. Be a lot of pressure to sit at this seat with all these chairs filled with generals staring at you and being like, what are we doing? Well, I'm going to take the first minute and go over in this corner over here and cry. Then I'll come back and we'll make some choices. They're going to be looked at for eternity and judged by everyone of how they would have handled it. And they're going to either call you a genius or a moron for the rest of your life based on what's about to come out of your mouth. And people want this job. That's insane. So in August of 1989, I believe it was, 1990, Saddam Hussein, out of nowhere, just took Kuwait, the country of Kuwait, which was between Iraq and Saudi Arabia. Took it in just a matter of hours. It was over. Then he dug in, going after Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, being a longtime ally of the U.S., of course, was very concerned, and so was the U.S. So this started a tense standoff between August and January. The January 15th deadline was for Saddam Hussein to withdraw. He did not do it. The U.S. started bombing. It didn't matter. They dug in. He just reinforced troops. He had hundreds of thousands of troops. And so between late January and early February, Operation Desert Storm was engaged. Allied troops in the hundreds of thousands descended upon the area, and a war was fought. Saddam Hussein was not killed, but he was turned back. He, of course, wouldn't be killed till several decades later. 2 decades later. Was it 2? Yes, it was 2. But Operation Desert Storm was a big notch in President Bush's belt. It was a victory because the entire point of it was to get Saddam Hussein to go back to Iraq, which it was successful. So he had a huge approval rating at the time, something like 80%, which is insane going into the election. But that just goes to show you either the power of Bill Clinton or just people weren't, maybe the polling was off, I don't know. But it is crazy how high his approval ratings were before the election, his bid for re-election, because truthfully, him being the incumbent, it should have been a shoo-in. Here we go. Operation Desert Storm.
Israel is now to participate. Israel is now to come back. And this man is elected to launch a terroristic attack.
Oh, the Patriot missiles. That was our response to Saddam Hussein's Scud missiles. I remember those headlines many, many times. The campaign for support from the American people during this time was these colors don't run. Everybody had shirts that said it. I had a sweatshirt, and I actually still have that sweatshirt in a box somewhere. But yeah, these colors don't run. Everybody had one of those on that summer. It was everybody was pretty pumped about it. Obviously, the reason Saddam wanted Saudi Arabia is what comes down to, and our interest in Saudi Arabia, oil. So that's interesting. They have the Gate of Kuwait that was given to the president, probably for protecting them. Of course, after they were invaded. That's pretty cool. I love Kuwait gift bottle. Contains soil from Free Kuwait. Thanks, Bush. That's funny. I guess if your country was definitely invaded and then thwarted by the U.S., yeah, I would say that would be a gift box thing right there. Leading us, of course, to the Bush Quail 92 campaign, going up against William Jefferson Clinton and Al Gore. Here's a bunch of campaign buttons. The other outlier candidate in that election was Ross Perot, the CEO of EDS. Ross Perot really never had a shot, but he made a huge splash because he was very smart. He had built many businesses in his life, and also from Texas, and he had a lot of smart ideas that he wanted to implement and help America with. I think he's best remembered, though, because of Dana Carvey's impression of him on SNL. And honestly, Elder Bush is that impression of Dana Carvey stands the test of time. People remember that a lot.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. You know, in the past, when I've spoken to you from this office here, the news has always been good, not bad, good.
But Ross just never, he was independent, so he was not a Democrat or a Republican, so he kind of had the odds stacked against him. But the debates were interesting. I do remember the debates from that summer, and they're definitely worth watching on YouTube. Oh, they actually have the Fidelity, George Bush's fishing boat. Wow. Look at that sweet boat. Just dying to be out on the water. As a private citizen, both George and Barbara Bush stayed very involved in humanitarian efforts. George Bush wrote several books, published them. He's also very famous for jumping out of a plane, parachuting on his 80th, 85th, and 90th birthday, and a couple in between there. Again, you can look up clips on YouTube, but he would parachute out to celebrate those big milestone birthdays, which everybody just really loved. I mean, just his joy for life, even that later in life, was pretty infectious. And just, it was contagious. You couldn't help but smile every time you saw him jump out of a plane when he turned a certain year old. It's pretty cool. He was also very famous for wearing just a bunch of crazy different socks every day. He loved crazy socks. Those are great. They've got several of his pairs here. Very cool. Oh, that's a beautiful portrait. Oh, that's so cool. Look at the reflections of all the old presidents up there. And then a lot of the American people. Oh, it's called The 1,000 Points of Light. Oh, that's a great portrait. That line is from a speech that he gave. I think it was his stump speech during his campaign, but unfortunately it's kind of been made into a joke by, again, the Dana Carvey impression of George H.W. Bush, but that is really cool. So the 1,000 Points of Light, when he would give these speeches, was his way of recognizing volunteerism or a different organization that's helping certain other Americans or whatever. The 1,000 Points of Light was what made up America. It was the spirit of America, but it was actual individuals, and he would recognize them. He recognized over 1,000 of them during his presidency. So he used the phrase a lot, which is why it got put into the impression by Dana Carvey. But yeah, it was it's definitely a real thing, and this is a beautiful portrait trying to give example of what it meant. Fathers and sons, 2 families, 4 presidents. That's pretty cool. Well, actually, they have his passports. Wow. Look at that. Wow. John Adams and John Quincy Adams. George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush. The only 2 father-son duos in history. More campaign buttons. I do love me some campaign buttons. Oh, look at these beautiful guns. Smith & Wesson 357, a gift from the Highway Patrol of California. And the other is a gift from the United States Marshal Service. Very cool. Oh, a bronze version. Not a bronze, a silver version of the Bronco Buster. Wow. And more of those boots. Oh, Barbara's blue suits. Blue was her favorite color, and she wore it very often. Actually, I'm not even sure if it's her favorite color. You associate a lot with blue. You see her in blue a lot. Or you did, I should say. Ooh, they had a baseball one. Of course they would. This is a perfect spot for a baseball exhibit, given his background in baseball. Look at there. Check these out. Roger Clemens signed ball. Ted Williams. Roger Clemens again. Mike Schmidt. Stan Musial. Look at that. That sure is. That's a Stan Musial signed ball. Gift from Tommy Lasorda. Oh, from the 88 Dodgers. They won the World Series that year. I grew up being a super fan of the Detroit Tigers, and Kirk Gibson was our star Tiger back in the 80s. And then when he got traded, or I think he was a free agent, he went to the Dodgers. He took them to the World Series too. Kirk Gibson was an amazing player, but he has that famous home run.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone.
That he hit to win the World Series. Oral Hershiser was on the mound for the Dodgers. It was just one of those beautiful stories that year. I remember the 89 World Series. Or no, it was 88. It was 88 World Series, because the 89 World Series is the one between the Giants and the Athletics. And that was the one that during the game, the huge earthquake hit San Francisco. That was crazy. In remembrance. That's cool. You can buy a copy of the invitations, the original inaugural invitations from 1989. That's neat. You can get a 41 button. Oh, let's get a bunch of postcards. I think I'll get one of those. Of course, some crazy socks, because he loved crazy socks. Look at these. Kentucky.
Welcome to Texas.
Well, thank you.
Glad you're here.
I am too. I'm having a good time.
What brings you here?
I was working at a job in Dallas, and then I took a couple days to hit the 3 presidential libraries y'all have here. Yeah, this is my 10th one. I got 2 left now.
Have you got the passport?
I sure do. I'm going to have you stamp it. Oh, they got dollar coins. That's pretty cool. And stamps. Oh, they got a picture of his meeting Babe Ruth. That's cool. That's amazing. It's on canvas. Ah, here we go. You know, that's what I'm here for. Got a little pack of buttons. Let's see which ones we got in here. Ooh, I like that one. That's pretty cool. What's the little one say? Bush gore or bush quail? Bush quail. Yeah, what the heck? Well, I like this one a lot.
We meet on democracy's front porch, a good place to talk as neighbors and as friends. For this is a day when our nation is made whole, when our differences for a moment are suspended. And my first act as president is a prayer, and I ask you to bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we bow our heads and thank you for your love. Accept our thanks for the peace that yields this day and the shared faith that makes its continuance likely. Make us strong to do your work, willing to heed and hear your will, and write on our hearts these words: use power to help people. For we are given power not to advance our own purposes, nor to make a great show in the world, nor a name. There is but one just use of power, and it is to serve people. Help us remember, Lord. Amen.
Oh, for how long do you know? Oh, I see. Okay. Well, I was going to walk out to the presidential gravesite of both George H.W. and Barbara Bush, but there's a park ranger standing at the entrance saying it's closed for about an hour. I don't know if maybe there's a family member or dignitary there paying respects. I really have no idea. Either way, we've seen quite a few of these on this Presidential Library and Museum tour, so it's okay to miss one of these, but both of them obviously are buried here just behind the library on the other side of this beautiful pond, which is a lovely piece of property here. Anyway, I really enjoyed that visit. I learned a few new things about him that I did not know, and that was pretty cool. Got some cool collectibles. Got me some more campaign buttons, and pretty excited about that. And of course got my passport stamped. Just to remind you guys, in case you haven't mentioned it several hundred times on these videos, I'm just kidding. They sell those presidential passports for $5 or $6 at each one of these. And once you get all stamps, there's 14 total. Well, right now, I believe there's 12 total, because Obama's is not open yet. So once you get all 12 stamps, you get a free gift of some kind. I'm sure it's nothing major, but it's kind of like a scavenger hunt for me. I've been enjoying visiting all these, so it'll be interesting wherever the museum is that I get it, which I think it'll be Truman's. The reason I say that, I only have 2 left. So I've got just Carter's and Truman's left to visit. Yeah, so we'll hopefully be getting that prize at the end of the rainbow very soon. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this visit as you have my other ones, and I appreciate you taking the walk with me, and we'll see you at the next one, guys. Bye now.
Thank you. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.